What a crazy week in wrestling. I don't know. Actually, some big stuff happened, right?
Yeah, I mean a massive moment closed out Raw this week.
Yeah, man. I watched that. I didn't watch Raw. It didn't work on me to actually get me to watch Raw, but I watched the clips. There were enough times there was enough clips on there that I could just watch that, and I appreciated that I could do that without having to slog through Raw. But it's man, it's so good to see.
Yeah, I like when they do right by not only guys that have just been there and put in the work and don't seem to complain, but just seem like really great people outside of wrestling as well. So I was very pleased to see Biggie finally be crowned WWE champion.
Yeah.
It's a mountain he probably should have been on top of, a couple of years back, but we'll take it where we can get it.
WWE, they are all about those moments, like WrestleMania moments and all that stuff. It's just and they do an excellent job at that. It's just the stuff between the moments that they really need to work on. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's the lack of, long form storytelling. Like these guys, it's not even anything that they really do that gets these moments. It's the fact that we've wanted to see them for so long and haven't been given them. Like Zack Ryder taking that Intercontinental belt at Mania in Dallas, Kofi at Kofi Mania. It's these guys that like should have been in these positions forever, and we have lobbied for them and wanted them just relentlessly for years at a time. Finally, get these things that I don't even necessarily know if WWE realizes that it's giving us these moments sometimes. I think it just we have pined for them for so long. We have built them up to get that sort of reaction.
yeah, and I mean, I think on this case, it's a good bit of work that Biggie's done outside of the actual shows. It's the dedication that the New Day has kept to like kind of stay together, like in even kind of even apart, they've stayed together. That fighting back on the WWE urge to split up any tag team after a certain amount of time. Um, it just wouldn't work with those guys, and I really admire the conviction of those guys to like really fight against any kind of effort to do so. So, and any effort to split them up. Let's jump to another thing. Did you get to see that? Did you get through that one moment, the one match in that GCW show, Highest in the Room? Were you able
No,
to get to that point?
I have reached the intermission point because
Ah,
I could have just skipped to Ron Funches, but at the same time, like I don't know who any of these damn guys are, and they could show up on AEW next week. I very much, and I for the life of me keep forgetting his name. The wrestling gay, love him. He's awesome.
you're talking about
Um,
Effie?
yeah,
Yeah.
Effie's awesome. Um, there's a handful of these guys are great. The match right before intermission um, was a ladder match but it was waiting on pinfall. It wasn't an actual ladder match. They just had a shitload of ladders out there, lots of light tubes involved. But these guys knew what the hell they were doing and weren't just like blood drenched by the time this thing was over. Um, so it was nice to see. I do enjoy like hardcore matches. I don't get into death matches, but like hardcore matches when the guys really know what they're doing, and get a little poke here and there, little pops of red. I'm good with. It's the pizza cutter across the forehead or like gouging at a guy's face with like the broken part of a light tube that doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And especially with an inexperienced Hollywood actor in a death match, that's also where you think he could die. That's
I
also
mean,
bad.
just clips from the Cardona match alone, like
Yeah.
I didn't do real well with those. I don't know. I like the pure art form of wrestling. I think,
Yeah.
and I think when there's too much blood, there's a separation for me between, this is incredibly athletic art, and this is, this could be anything. This could be bum fights. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't work for me on a wrestling level.
Well, for those of you who don't know, comedian Ron Funches did have his pro wrestling debut and retirement match uh, on Friday's Highest in the Room in Los Angeles. He was cornered by other fellow comedian Paul Scheer, and it was a fun time. So I'm not going to say any more about it, but it's a fun match. It is no Cole Pat McAfee. Like Pat McAfee, like he was great in the ring, and I think that's another thing that separates these types of matches. When you have someone that was an athlete like Pat McAfee, like he took to wrestling like way better than Funches, way better than David Arquette and stuff like that. Like he felt way more natural in the ring than in these guys, and that's I think really the difference in a lot of those cases. It's definitely not for Arquette or Funch's lack of trying, but they definitely made up for it in other ways in that match and made it wildly entertaining. I hate to almost say this anymore, but like what we used to say, I was sports entertained. Like that's basically what that was. It was less a wrestling match and more sports entertainment for sure, and I enjoyed it. But like let's keep this ball rolling about sports entertainment. NXT 2.0.
I wasn't disappointed. There were some of the new characters have some real Vince Bruce Pritchard fingerprints on them.
My family's in waste management.
Yeah, our new mafioso who is apparently going to join the show. Biggest question mark for me. You have a Steiner. He looks like a Steiner. Why in the hell did you not name him Steiner? I mean, it sells itself. Was a little weird that he opened the show against LA Knight, who later had to wrestle in the Fatal 4-Way match. I mean, because they have fired 90% of their roster, but there's more than just those four guys. So it was a little weird. I didn't mind the new setup. It's exactly as they described it. It is a scaled down version of the Raw setup. It looks good. I hadn't considered all of the colors were. I saw a meme on the internet the other day that was an ad for Dynamite, where it was just a bunch of wrestlers standing there with the color pops going off behind them. And I didn't like put two and two together until then, but I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it's colorful. The crowd is much more visible and involved now. I loved that underground black cage thing when they had the screens too.
Yeah.
But when they just went back to having the crowd without that, it lost a lot of the vibe. And that was sad because that was an awesome fucking look. The new screens are really cool. Like when Ciampa did his entrance and like his face was in the X for the NXT on the wall, like that looked amazing. So they put a lot of effort into the new look. Jury's still out on how the show fares with more involvement from upper management in terms of the creative. It's rumored that Shawn Michaels still pretty much ran the show on Tuesday, so that's good. And people want to shit on these segments, but the Indy Hartwell Dexter Lumis wedding, it was just fun.
Yeah.
I was sports entertained, and bravo to Austin Theory. He, when they give him moments to shine, he takes them to another level. He plays this character so well. He's so dumb. I can't remember the Asian guy's name that I love with the crazy blazers.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I've seen him before, but I was just like, this guy is great. Like,
yeah, he's got a hell of a like aura about him. But like the first time I saw him, his blazer had a bunch of, it was just his face smiling all over it. I loved it. Ichiman, maybe. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's.
I mean, Ichiban is like number one, so like
yeah, so, it's something like that.
Yeah,
his name is like number one handsome or something when you translate it, which is I'm cool with. But yeah, I enjoyed this show. Was very impressed with the debut for Little Steiner, Braun Breaker, which
this seems to indicate that Braun Strowman might not be coming back anytime soon.
Yeah. Speaking of Braun Strowman, he apparently attended a wedding this weekend with his girlfriend, Raquel Gonzalez. Braun Strowman looks incredible.
Hold on. He's dating Raquel Gonzalez?
Yeah.
That's kind of mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I didn't know it until I saw the photos, but yeah, he has streamlined. He's probably down around 310 now. Just every muscle on his body looks like perfectly toned. I mean, he is actually a monster among men now.
Wow. Yeah, the only thing I would like them to do, at least in the short term, as far as the setup for the NXT 2.0 thing. I mean, I wish I wouldn't call it 2.0, but apparently they're going to keep on going for a while just to really let people know that it's different. But I like the crowd. Maybe just a hair darker on the crowd. It felt, in some cases, it almost felt like we were in like a high school gym or something like that. It was like so bright. And just having the crowd just a little bit darker would be nicer. Not like in the complete darkness that they were in the old CWC. But also, like, I don't know, maybe make those chairs at least look more permanent, even if they can break them down relatively easy. It felt a little cheap because there's like, oh, these are like fancy folding chairs, but they're folding chairs. So like, I don't know if they just put in some kind of like seating that they can that just looks a little bit more like, oh, we're here to stay for a while. That would be nice.
And they're not going to travel anytime soon. They're just going to keep working out of that arena. It's basically just NXT's home. Just install bleachers so that it looks like it. Like even if you go back on the road and you're just using that building for developmental work, you can have like people can bring their families in. They can sit around in the crowd and stuff so that they can get experience working in front of a crowd. I mean, I would just put bleachers in, but I completely agree on the lights. It felt like they were in a bingo hall where they had very limited control over which lights could go on and off.
Yeah.
So they just went with all of them at full force. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I hate 2.0 because that's incredibly dated. There's got to be something more, with the times, they could have called it, that would have the same feel. But again, I think that it really is. It's going to be sort of a work in progress for a few weeks, and then we'll really get a feel for how much they're going to change it.
Right. It's yeah, like I guess we'll just wait for a real assessment a couple months from now and see how they're doing. I hope they succeed in this regard. I hope they're successful, because AEW is getting a little too full, and you need to still have a good viable options for everybody. And I'd hate, although someone like Effie shows that you can make a pretty damn. I mean, he's making a pretty damn good living on independence, but it'd be nice for people to have that big money option if you're not as charismatic as Effie. So
yeah, and I mean, like a guy like Cardona he said on the Jericho podcast that he's making good money on the independent kind of circuit like he's doing. He's got a really good deal with Impact as well, but he was like, to to keep the money flowing in, he's basically killing himself. He's like, I'm in an airport every day going to do something different. He's like, I never get to go home. So
yeah, and I mean that's like essentially why when they started doing the first Being the Elites, that was kind of like that's all that show was just like they were in airports all the time. They were just killing time and like entertaining themselves, recording the show at all these different airports. So yeah, it's crazy. What happened on AEW this week? I forget it. Was there? I know they're setting up matches for.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. If I waited a year and a half to be in that crowd in New Jersey, I would be pissed off. Because all that show was we don't like you, you don't like us. We'll see you next week at the Grand Slam. It was the entire broadcast. There were a couple of matches in there, but nothing meaningful. This was the most promo heavy Dynamite to date, and it was literally just setting shit up for next week. I do desperately hope that Chris Jericho and Jake Hager just beat whoever the American Top Fight sends out there against them.
Yeah.
And that goes the fuck away, because why are you recycling 5-year-old TNA storyline? It's dumb. Just quit doing it. But I'm super excited that we're going to get non-title Kenny Omega Daniel Bryan match. I would imagine that you get a clean finish because the title's not in play. So that'll be entertaining to see. I'm glad that if they were going to, jump straight to this match, that it wasn't for the belt. Because I'm sort of with everybody else. That belt is Hangman's to win. The story has been built for Hangman to win that from Kenny. So keeping the title out of the equation, particularly since you were jumping straight to, like, I can't think of a bigger dream match if you get Bryan Danielson in AEW, then immediately throwing him in with Omega. So that's I'm glad they're doing that next week. You don't have to wait 3 months worth of promos to see it in November. But yeah, I mean, Grand Slam should be great, but I really would. I'd be kind of unhappy if I was in that crowd in New Jersey.
Yeah. I was also thinking when I was watching Rampage, and maybe it's just on my memory because I just watched it yesterday morning, but with like also the Hardy Family Office, it's just like this catch-all for like every heel that's like left over, and like I feel like Butcher, Blade, and Bunny, they don't need to be in a faction, really. Like they're their own thing. I mean, I guess I'm okay with Private Party and Team Eurotrash. I always forget what their actual name is. Like I guess they're okay in Hardy Family Office, but it's just like there was like 2 matches back to back where we just heard the kind of terrible Hardy Family Office theme song on Rampage, and I'm just like, I just like that can go away. We can, we have crowds back. Hardy can maybe evolve his character again, or devolve or whatever, do something else. I think like I get why he did it when there was no crowds, like why he moved away from the broken stuff, because it just doesn't make sense without any kind of crowds around. But I'm also ready for a new. I mean, this is a Big Money Mac character. I'm also ready for like a new character at this point from him. And we also don't need all these teams together. I mean, Andy Williams, he cut some weight. Like he was looking pretty good in that title match.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah.
And I think too that with Hardy, if you're gonna keep throwing tag teams into his faction, Big Money Matt is the wrong guy. That's not tag team Matt. I mean, at worst, they should be paired up with, version 1. Like I think it's weird that one of his more successful solo characters is the one that's, the mentor for all these tag teams.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think he needs to do something. They're clearly leaning into a hair versus hair match with Orange Cassidy, where Matt Hardy will inevitably end up bald because they're not going to shave Orange Cassidy's head.
I hope
So
that fan got a good compensation enough to like shave his head, cut off his very nice looking hair, just to further someone else's angle. I'm hoping to get paid well.
yeah, that it's apparently some indie wrestler that
Yeah,
guys on Cage Side recognized. I didn't know who he was,
yeah,
but yeah,
uh,
it's a weird. I mean, I love Matt Hardy. Obviously, I love the Hardys in general. Um, I at this stage in the game, I think it's doing a disservice to all of these people you've paired with him for him to get the big matches, for him to be the one that gets the Orange Cassidy match with the gimmick attached to it. Like these are opportunities to like showcase these other guys, which I kind of thought was the point of the Hardy family office. So
yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little lost there. Um, I feel like as AEW has gotten so bloated, a lot of this stuff has gotten a little convoluted, and there's not as much focus on like singular ideas anymore. Which I hate the constant comparisons to WCW, but when you've got things like this, I'm sure at this point it's not getting a ton of creative. So Matt Hardy comes in the door and he's like, "Oh, I think we should do this week," and that's just sort of like what they do there because it's low enough on the card. Just let him do whatever. He's earned that.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the downfall of Hogan and Nash and them just picking their spots and doing whatever the hell they wanted.
I mean, the
Yeah.
difference there is the buck truly does stop with Tony Khan. Like he does have a final say, which in WCW, all those contracts were written to where Bischoff did not have final say in anything. So at least there's protection there. But yeah, like it could be, and I agree that I don't think there's a problem at the top end of the card as far as those storylines. But it could be, lower down and some of those lower card stuff where, I mean, Tony Khan's just one man really. And I know that some of the other EVPs and stuff are helping out, but there's only a certain amount. And I mean, at the same time, I don't want him to like bring in a whole like writing team and stuff like WWE because that doesn't help either. But maybe having someone just like an assistant for continuity type thing or something like that, like just someone to help out that he trusts is always good too. So
Well,
I don't know.
and you've got a guy like, I mean, I hate the idea of giving performers too much control over creative, but you've got a guy like CM Punk who clearly understands all of the inner workings of the business and clearly watches all of it. Like he comments on literally everything that happens in AEW. So you've got a guy there that's got both the mental, acuity and the motivation to like see this show do really, really well. I mean, I could see that being a role for him. Christian, everybody that's ever worked with him says he has one of the best wrestling minds in the business. So you've got these guys that, not right now. Obviously, they're a little busy trying to memorize all these promos and keep their storylines running. Christian's working 2 shows. So I mean, but down the line, I think he's got enough guys there that as it starts to get bloated and become kind of a continuity issue, there's enough guys that can, we need to streamline this process sort of thing. I think Mark Henry would be great.
Oh yeah.
I mean, basically Mark Henry single-handedly was the brainchild behind the Nation of Domination. So, I mean, that guy, he's got the brain for it. I think he's going to be great on commentary if he's ever given more chance to like speak up. But the tools are in place. I think there's going to be. We didn't see a ton of it year one, but I think we're going to see some of the growing pains for them, over the next year or two, and some of this stuff's going to get a little foggy. But I think it'll kind of balance itself out once they get through the mad signing craze and and
Yeah.
having this like bloated roster with not a whole lot of TV time for them. I could see Rampage becoming a 2-hour show if it continues to do really well, because it's in a shit time slot. So the fact that it does as well as it does is kind of amazing.
And we're getting the first 2-hour Rampage this Friday. This Friday is going to be a 2-hour show, so we'll see how it runs. I mean, it seems pretty big.
Yeah,
we've got CM Punk facing Will Hobbs before he inevitably faces Hook some point down the line, the real dream match. I think I hope Hobbs takes this. I really feel like okay, so you got that first match back, you got Punk winning over Darby. I kind of feel like, I mean, Hobbs again, powerhouse. Like, I feel like at the very least, if Punk wins, it's got to be positioned in a way that his veteran mind like somehow like it's got to like appear like a strategy thing, because it's definitely not going to be an overpowering thing.
The Chris Sabin over Moose finish.
Yeah, that was excellent, and they told a great story in that ring. And we successfully mentioned Moose for the second time this season, so that helps.
While I have it in mind, so we do not neglect him again, Moose was on the losing side of a 10-man tag match this week. I mean, it was inevitable. He was opposite, Josh Alexander, Christian, Sami Callihan, Edwards, and Chris Sabin. They paired him with Ace Austin and a couple of guys I don't really. Or Brian Myers was on the other team, or was on Moose's team. Big Cass, Morrissey was with Moose, but he didn't eat the finish, but he was on the losing end. So we have mentioned Moose's contribution to wrestling for the week.
All right. Well, tune in next week. We promise we'll bring you more Moose updates. I just man, I lost. Oh, we were talking about that's the only way that CM Punk should win is it should be something similar to that finish. I mean, a roll up if it's done right. It's just as long as it's not the WWE roll ups all the time situation. So I don't know.
I have thought that they would finish up the Brian Cage stuff, and then Team Taz would go after Miro. Mm-hmm. Something about that felt right to me. And I mean, it could still come down the line, but I really wanted to see Hobbs and Miro for the TNT belt. I think that match would be amazing. There's not a whole lot of, outside of Brian Cage, there's not a whole lot of guys in AEW that I think have the power to physically match up with Hobbs. And I think Miro's one of them. So I would love to see that in the not too distant future.
Yeah. And I like to see Wardlow, talking about other big men that haven't really done a lot. I would like to see Wardlow do it, because when Wardlow has performed, he's been pretty damn good. So definitely I'd see. I do like that they protect him a little bit, but at the same time, because if someone like Wardlow should be just tearing through most of that AEW tiny guy roster, but I would like to see him a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
is he, because he seems to have come out of nowhere. Was he part of Cody's wrestling school or something? And they were like, this guy's got a great look. We need to get him in here, and we'll keep working with him as he progresses, and then.
From what I could tell, he was working in the Northeast. So, if someone was mentioning how so much of this roster is from Long Island or New York City, but they're all they all worked or started out all within I don't know 10 miles of each other, maybe in different times because they grew up at different times. But yeah, it's a crazy Long Island stacked roster.
Wow, he's only 6'3". I thought he would be,
Yeah, that it shows giant. How small the roster is. Really. So
6'3", 270. So realistically, he's the exact same size as Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
But I guess the last thing, and it's kind of the almost the elephant in the room situation. But did you watch that plane ride from hell, that Dark
I
Side of the Ring?
I have not yet.
You've
I,
read about it, I'm
yeah,
assuming. It's it's quite a lot. So there is one little detail that's kind of popped up that is incorrect, and at least supposedly incorrect. But Jonathan Coach, was on that flight, and he vehemently was defending the fact that Vince was not on that flight. And then, and again, people were kind of talking about it. And I think it was also then later confirmed by Dave Meltzer. Again, whatever you think of him, he did look into this, and like he wasn't on the actual flight. But still, there were responsible people on that flight, and that stuff got like way out of hand. But it just, we've always heard about the stuff, the tussle between Kurt Hennig and Brock Lesnar, which, to hear it retold, sounds incredibly dangerous. Like they collided with the exit row door, and even though there's a lot of work that would have to be done to actually like pop that door off, like it's still I would have been terrified if I was any of those wrestlers on that plane. That we are all going to die, and what a crazy like alternate universe that would have happened, where like the entire WWF roster or WWE roster at the time would have died. Like that's an alternate universe situation that would be super crazy.
yeah.
Like if Disney acquires WWE and then they do their own version of that Marvel's What If show for wrestling, that could be an option. But I don't know. It's Ric Flair. They had the flight attendant on there that Ric Flair supposedly had touch him. Like he cornered her and made her touch him. Ric Flair denies it, and but there's been some fallout. He's lost some ad deals and stuff since this episode has come out. Tommy Dreamer went out of his way to like dig his own grave, fall on a sword to defend Ric Flair, when all you really had to do is just not really say anything.
Just keep your mouth shut.
when RVD is like the voice of reason in this episode, it's like, yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, I don't know. It's we'll have to see what happens, but it's definitely the most. Someone was joking that there should be a Dark Side of the Ring episode on the Dark Side of the Ring plane ride from hell episode from all the fallout.
It sounds like it. I did think it was a little weird, like the idea that that Vince and Linda would have been on that plane. People getting drunk and getting rowdy with Vince around, he probably would have egged some of that on. I don't think any of that would have happened if Linda was on that plane. So, like, yeah. they've all seemed to have way too much respect for her to have gotten out of hand like that. So that to begin with caught me a little off guard. As much as I wish I could say it, I'm not really surprised by revelations about Ric Flair. Like,
no,
I have waited patiently for more Me Too shit to hit the WWE. Just, you don't get these like testosterone-addled steroid guys in a room and not run into these sorts of issues. I mean, I'm not, and that is in no way to give any of it a pass. I'm just saying those are the sorts of environments where these stories come from most often. And these guys were paid incredibly well. They stayed drunk and drugged. Like, they were the guys that were going to be the most likely candidates to get Me Too'd. So I don't know why everybody seems shocked that Ric Flair could have done this.
I mean, what's the whole thing where like when someone tells you who they are, like believe them? Ric Flair hasn't really. There was a WWE story time that they pulled down from Peacock where it's basically him retelling the plane ride from hell, but then always talking about how all the like flight attendants were like fawning all over him, and it's like, oh, none of this should really be a surprise in a way. But yeah, it's still heartbreaking to listen to the flight attendant lady talk about it. Man, I can't remember her name right now. But it's still crazy. And then and it's just like, the thing is, like, when Undertaker a few months ago, or Mark or whatever you want to call him now, he was talking about how like all the guys now are too soft and they're not tough like we were back in the day. But it's just like, Undertaker was a locker room leader when all this stuff was going down, and that's a lot of bad shit going down. And now they're nerds who play video games in the back, and I think the industry as a whole is better for it. And not to say that there still isn't problems, because obviously a lot of the speaking out stuff were about current indie people, especially in the UK. But there's still a lot of nerds out there that aren't doing these things. You got the Adam Coles, and you have the Garganos and all those guys. Xavier Woods, Big E, these guys are good stand-up guys, and I think it's definitely better. And I think part of that was maybe the move to the PG thing. I don't know if McMahon intentionally did that, but I think the move to make the product more PG probably also had an effect on the backstage as well. So yeah. So I'm excited for this season to watch the episode on Luna Vachon, as the ads point out that she was schizophrenic or something, or at least someone claims she was schizophrenic. And that would always make sense why she always felt very dangerous on the TV to me. Like, anytime she showed up when we were watching the Attitude Era, she felt incredibly dangerous, like more dangerous than anybody else on that roster.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. I'm excited to watch that. But yeah, I think you just started the season, right?
Yeah,
first half of the season.
I'm just starting that. Hulu stays. I think for them, they stay a season behind, but since this season got split in half, I've already got the first half of this season. So I'm excited to get into that. As I told you, I didn't really have a ton of familiarity with Brian Pillman. So I'm excited to finally see those, because I legitimately just really enjoy Brian Pillman Jr. With no knowledge of his dad. Like, I know he was crazy. Like that, I've heard enough of the little tidbits about him being a wild one in other documentaries, but outside of that, like I just legitimately enjoy Varsity Blondes and Brian Pillman Jr. So that I'm excited to get into those. Not so excited to hit episode 3, as it is the King of Deathmatch, Nick Gage. I don't know that my heart can handle too much murder, death, kill, but we'll see. I'll take it slowly. I'll turn it on in the background while I'm doing work. During a Zoom meeting.
You just turned white while in the middle of your meeting.
I just start vomiting profusely.
The Collision in Korea one is also just quite fun, quite interesting to hear about that whole North Korea show. I really enjoyed that one a lot. So anyway, well, that's we've got the big show in Arthur Ashe Stadium. I am actually really looking forward to seeing this setup, just because of the more telescope nature of a tennis arena. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how they what the look is, if it feels different than a normal arena show. We got that coming up, and we'll see what happens with Big E and stuff coming forward as well, and hopefully no more crazy revelations in the next Dark Side of the Ring. I don't know which the next episode is, but it's going to be nuts. So yeah. Well, anything else you're looking forward to?
No, I mean the overly jam-packed Arthur Ashe cards for Dynamite and Rampage. The Bloodline will be on Raw this week. Roman and the Usos will challenge the New Day. So that'll be a good one. Probably, I honestly, if we got to Survivor Series and everybody was still champs and you could put the Raw tag belts back on Kofi and Xavier, just do this 6-man match just repeatedly. I'm okay with that. Outside of that, there's not a ton. Next Sunday is Extreme Rules. None of these matches have been announced as being Extreme Rules matches yet, which is odd to me. Maybe they're just going to do the whole card as Extreme Rules so they don't feel the need to say it. But yeah, so we've got a pay-per-view on tap. Another week of NXT 2.0. But yeah, it should be a big week for AEW in particular. They have one hell of a card built for New York City.
And next Sunday, I'm going to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, my front row seat.
Nice.
So that'll be interesting. I'm excited about, particularly. Oh man, who was I excited about? Oh, Malachi Black and Brody King against I forget, it's Flamita, but it was like Evil Flamita or something like that. and Black Taurus. So like that'll be a lot of fun. But I'm excited to seeing Malachi Black like in person. That'll be really cool. So
maybe you'll get a Jake Atlas appearance.
Yeah, but I don't know if you saw this, but he's stepping away from wrestling. So he is listed on the card. So I don't know if he's going to be wrestling to like fulfill obligations that he's made. But he said he was, for mental health reasons and stuff like that, he needed to step away from wrestling. So I don't know if they're making a substitution on that card, or if he's going to kind of just finish that out and then just take a break, take a permanent break or a temporary one. But either way, he needed some time. I'm sure for him, I know a big goal of his was to be like, kind of the first kind of like openly gay world champion over in WWE. That was his goal and stuff. And, he's also one of those people that like, WWE was not his like dream, like lifelong, but that was definitely like the reason why he got into wrestling is to do that stuff with WWE, and that, didn't happen. So I can imagine stepping away from that, but it'll be a big bummer because he was one of my favorites. So we'll see. But hey, at least we mentioned Moose though this week. Next week we will too. So come back next week for your favorite Moose appreciation podcast.
Yes. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, watch us on YouTube, all your favorite podcast providers. We're probably only on like 2. I don't know where all Zencastr puts this stuff.
We're on like 8, but like it's 6 I've never heard of. So
that's where we get all those fans from Ireland.
Yeah. All right. Well, see you next week.